Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a huge idea, the Constitution. And no, we're not just talking about some dusty old legal document. We're talking about the living, breathing blueprint that literally shapes a nation's soul. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that might sound a little weird at first. What on earth do your neighborhood rules have in common with a whole nation's government? Well, it turns out a lot. The answer really gets to the core of what we're talking about today. See, every group, whether it's your small community or a massive country, needs a set of rules to work. And that basic act of setting up those rules, that's the heart of what a constitution is all about. So here's what we've got on the agenda. We're going to start with that simple neighborhood idea and watch it grow. Then we'll dig into what a constitution actually does, check out some of the different flavors they come in, and tackle the really crucial difference between the piece of paper and the big idea behind it. And we'll wrap up by asking the million-dollar question, who really holds the power? All right, let's jump into our first section. We're going to see how this simple concept of a community rulebook blows up into the supreme law for an entire nation. It really all starts with the word itself. Constitution comes from the Latin word constituere, which just means to establish or to set up. So think about it. When your local resident welfare association makes rules about where you can park or how late you can make noise, they are, in a very real way, constituting their little community. Now let's scale that idea way up, to the level of a whole country. All of a sudden, the stakes are so much higher, right? We're not just talking about parking spots anymore. We're talking about a fundamental agreement that lays out the entire game plan, how the government is set up, how it relates to its people, and all the rights and duties that tie everyone together. Okay, so it's a set of principles. Great, but what does that actually mean? What do these principles do in the real world? How does this thing really work as a nation's instruction manual? Yeah, the best way to think about it is like a country's operating system, seriously. It lays out all the hardware, the big institutions like the parliament and the judiciary. It also defines the software, the rights and responsibilities of every single citizen. And then it sets the overall mission. What are the core values? What are the big social and economic goals we're all working towards? And in a lot of countries, like India, for example, the Constitution is the absolute supreme law of the land. I love this analogy of a giant banyan tree. The Constitution is that massive ancient tree. And every other law, I'm talking everything from traffic codes to tax laws, has to fit underneath its branches. No law, big or small, can ever contradict it. But here's a really interesting part. Not all of these instruction manuals are the same. Not even close. They come in all different flavors, so let's check out a few of the key ways they can differ, especially in how they're built and how easy or hard they are to change. Okay, one of the biggest distinctions is super simple. Is it written down in one place or not? So you've got countries like the USA and India where you can literally hold the Constitution in your hand. It's one single formal document. But then you have places like the UK or New Zealand. Their constitutions are considered unwritten, because they're pieced together from a whole bunch of different sources. Laws, long-standing conventions, major court rulings, all developed over hundreds of years. Another biggie is how easy it is to change the rules. Some are rigid, which means changing them is a huge deal. Think of the US or Australia. You need to go through a really difficult special process to amend anything. On the flip side, you have flexible constitutions, like the UK's. There, it can be changed much more easily, almost in the same way you'd pass a regular law. And the structure of power itself is a huge variable. In a federal system, like you see in the US or Switzerland, power is split. You've got a national government, but then the regional governments, the states, have their own significant powers too. But in a unitary system, like in the UK or China, pretty much all the power is concentrated in one central national government. And all this really highlights a key challenge, doesn't it? It's this constant tug-of-war between stability and being able to adapt. Jawaharlal Nehru put it perfectly. He said, "A nation is a living, breathing thing. If you make its constitution totally rigid and permanent, you're essentially stopping that nation from growing and evolving." Okay, this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole discussion. We've been talking a lot about the document, the Constitution, but now we need to talk about the idea behind the document. And that idea is called constitutionalism.
So this naturally leads to a really important question. If a country has a constitution, does that automatically mean it has a limited government? Does having the rulebook guarantee that everyone's going to play by the rules? And the answer to that is a big, fat no. Not at all. A country can have the most beautifully written constitution in the world, filled with wonderful promises, but if the people in power just ignore it, then that document isn't worth the paper it's printed on.
And this is where we get to the heart of it. The piece of paper, the document itself, that's the Constitution. But constitutionalism, well, that's the belief. It's the commitment, the culture of actually following those rules. It's the powerful idea that a government's power comes from the law and is limited by the law. It's the belief in a limited government where nobody, not the president, not the prime minister, nobody is above the law.
I mean, just think about this stark example. Nazi Germany technically still had a constitution, the Weimar Constitution. But was there any constitutionalism? Absolutely not. The government completely ignored it. The idea of limited government was thrown out the window. And whatever the dictator said, that was the law. And that right there is the crucial difference. The words on the page are meaningless if nobody is committed to them. All right, so if constitutionalism is the real prize, how do you actually get there? What are the ingredients you need to build a government that's genuinely limited by its own rulebook?
Well, political thinkers usually point to a few key things. First, it has to start with popular sovereignty, the idea that all power ultimately comes from the people. Then you need the rule of law, which means the law applies equally to everyone, no exceptions. To keep power in check, you've got to have separation of powers, so no single branch gets too strong. You need an independent judiciary, a referee that isn't biased. And finally, you need civilian control, making sure the elected government, not the military, is calling the shots.
So here's the bottom line. The ultimate takeaway from all this. A constitution is just a document. It's constitutionalism that really matters. It's the difference between a government that rules over you and one that is accountable to you. It's the whole idea that makes sure power serves the people and not the other way around. So we'll leave you with one final question to chew on. At the end of the day, is a nation really defined by the words written in its constitution or by its actual